Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if I need to do this, do I? I'll call this meeting back to order. Thank you for allowing us to take a recess. Next up is the consent agenda. Does any board member have anything that they'd like to, board member or community member, to pull from the consent agenda?
Yes, oh my gosh, that's a loud mic. Oh my word, I've never sat in this chair before, thank you. Wow, I better sit back a few because I'm loud to begin with. I would like to pull 6E, name the school district legal counsel, please, for further discussion.
Okay, any other things wanting to be pulled? Okay, hearing none, we will move 6E down to where 7 is, and we'll just move everything else down. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda less item E. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next, we will take item E, name of the school district and legal counsel. Director Atkinson.
So, do you want to take a motion, second?
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you. I'll take a motion. Thank you.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
No, discussion.
Oh,
Thank you.
discussion, yeah, please.
So, thank you. So the way that it's written in our board packet here, it says that we've listed 3 legal counsels, which I'm happy to see that we've dialed that back. I think we had 5 last year. So we still have 3 listed, giving our district, the opportunity to use different legal for different reasons, which I think is good to get different perspectives as well. But it does say in the packet here that as the school district legal, so these are all school district's legal counsel. But it says only the superintendent and the executive director of administrative services or their designated representatives are authorized to initiate contact with legal counsel on behalf of the school district. And so my question is, and I checked around with a couple other boards, typically the board as a total, you'd need board majority. If the board needed legal counsel for any specific reason, it doesn't, the way this is written, this doesn't allow us as a board to use these legal counsels. So I would like to propose adding in there language that basically says the superintendent, the board, with board majority, and then the other list of different administrators to be able to use legal counsel.
Is there any other discussion based on that? Director Smith?
So what would we need legal counsel on? I'm trying to understand better.
Yeah, so so let's say our board, there's a board member facing legal issues, and we as a board need to reach out and get legal advice from our legal on how to handle a situation. That would be an example of where would we go for legal service or legal counsel. If we do not have, as a board, if we do not have authorization to use these legal services, who would the board have? And maybe Dr. Thomas, based on your previous experience, you can answer how the board has used legal counsel.
So my experiences has been with the 2 districts serving as a superintendent is that the board has worked through the superintendent for legal counsel on all matters. So it was just initiated, by myself or in this case, Director Cawthorn on behalf of the board. So that was still brokered accordingly, whatever the purpose would be. So that's been my experience.
So it would go basically through you.
Yeah,
if
and I know
the-
you all have access to MSBA counsel, and a lot of you reach out directly to MSBA. But in terms of these, and again, this might not be exhaustive, but these are our primary contacts. But yeah, if a board member, and I would say with the chair, would say, hey, we would like to pursue X, Y, and Z on this issue, then that would be something that we would broker the conversation, I guess, on behalf of that board.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really great point. I know I've reached out to
Director
MSB.
Atkinson?
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry.
Two speaks per, right?
No, we can have it till 10 minutes each on a topic.
No, it's two.
2 times. Robert's Rules of Order is discussed on a motion 2 times per item.
I don't think I've spoken yet. I basically gave why I brought this forward, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would just like to say, based on the officers' MSBA training that I've attended to twice, legal counsel can be, like Dr. Thomas said, sought through him, and MSBA does offer, I mean, their legal attorney is available to us. I mean, he offers his phone number to us all. So I'm just trying to understand, we have access to legal advice, and you're requesting a more direct access to the district's legal?
No, I would never advocate for an individual board member to access our legal counsel.
No, I said
What I'm trying to
access.
understand is, I have gone to MSBA in multiple things, and Terry Morrow will say, we don't give legal advice. Consult your legal counsel. And I'm sure you've heard that said as well. And so I'm just saying, the way this is written, it doesn't read that if there is an issue that the board wants legal counsel on, we as a board, as a majority, should be able to go to the legal counsel. If it's through the superintendent, that's fine, to seek legal counsel. But the way this is written right here, that doesn't give us the authority.
Like, even if there was an incident where maybe actual or, anything. Without, like, let's say there is no SI. So I kind of understand that.
I would defer to Director Francis. You have sat as chair, just to kind of, because I don't see that we've had any problem accessing legal when needed. So I'm just, I hear what you're saying, Director Atkinson, that you're saying that the language written doesn't allow access if the will of the board was to, and I just don't believe that to be the case. I believe that if the board needed, it would be through, the access is there.
Well, first of all, we're voting on representation for the district as a whole, not for individual board issues. So that's the one thing to keep in mind here. And the only exception that I'm sure you've listened to is if, let's say, there's an issue with the superintendent, and therefore we would go
Then the
through
board chair has
the
it.
chair as
it's
well
not
as
written that
Director
way.
Cothern. It would
It's-
not be you alone.
Right.
Because you are not legally, even though you can sign, the legal obligation of the lawyers are to the district itself. And then also MSBA does provide legal guidance, but they will not replace our own district legal guidance because we are independent school districts. So when we have questions on, let's say, policy or whatever, they do give legal guidance, but they will say that because we're an independent school district, that if there's any further questions, to have the superintendent or the director of business services contact our representative legal counsel in order to make the final interpretation on our behalf, because we're independent. And so that's the way it's always been, but there, I don't know any board in the state of Minnesota that allows individual board members to contact the legal offices representing the district as a whole, because we as an independent can't do that. Now, we can as a quorum vote to ask, and we've done that multiple times, to ask the superintendent and business services to contact legal for advice. And that is usually the protocol for that, and I don't believe anyone's ever said no. I think the only question is how much do we want to do that, because it's not cheap.
Director Smith?
Yeah, the only other point that I was going to make is to echo that, with Dr. Thomas, with the superintendent being a non-voting member of the board, I think it's already pretty clearly stated that the board does have access to legal counsel. It's through the superintendent, who is a member of the board, just a non-voting member.
Any other input from other directors?
My only the last feedback, I never intended to say an individual board member would contact legal. I know what's happened in the past, and we've incurred legal fees for that, and it's not okay. But is there any language that can be added that if legal counsel was to be contacted on behalf of the board, it would be a quorum of the board that would need to be?
I feel like that's just what we do.
So
So
that's not what we've done in past. I mean,
Director
I-
Atkinson, we're not debating that.
Well, I'm just trying to get clarity because what is listed here.
And Director Atkinson, we're trying to follow Robert's Rules of Order guidance a little bit more closely. You brought a suggestion.
Can we hear from other
heard
board
it.
members then, please?
Can we what?
Can we hear from other board members then, please?
Uh,
I brought
that's what
forth
I
a
asked.
concern, yeah.
That's what I asked.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything else to add? Hearing none, and with a motion and a second on the table, I'll take a vote. Are we all in favor of the school district legal counsel? Say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All in favor, 7-0. All right. Moving on. The next agenda item is the 2026 board compensation, and it's my recommendation that we leave all the board compensation to be the same for the year 2026. So I will entertain a motion and a second for that.
Second.
Director France, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next up is the approval of board committee assignments for 2026. And now that we have the chair, vice chair, and treasurer, we can take those and enter those in, but nothing else has changed, so I will pass those out. And, yeah, I think that. So I will entertain a motion to approve the board committee assignments for 2026. And if we need to take a moment to look at them, that's fine too. I was able to honor all the board members' requests, so hopefully there's no surprises.
I would just like to, I think I sent this to you in an email. We've never listed the APAC committee on our board committees, and the APAC committee is a district-wide committee. So I would like to make the suggestion to add the APAC committee to our committee roster. I know in the past our chair has attended those meetings, but just adding some transparency of our support for that committee on our roster.
There's not a motion and a second on the table yet for the committee assignments, so we can, once we have the first and second, we will have discussion, and
I'll make a motion.
thank you.
Second.
And a second by Director Smith. All right, and Director Atkinson, if you want to, if there's anything else you wanted to add.
I'd like to make a motion to amend our committee roster to add the APAC committee to the district-wide committees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the amended motion would be approving the board committee assignments with an addition of an APAC advisory committee. And discussion on that. Director France?
My only question is because we don't list that committee in our current policies, maybe that should be held to the retreat when we are discussing the board policies. And then also engage the APAC committee itself, because we have not had a previous representative of the board there. That has been usually handled by a director and the superintendent, and then, of course, the chair has been able to attend, but they're not an actual designated member of the committee. So right now, this follows our existing policy. Adding the APAC committee would not follow that policy. But I would be in favor of adding that to a point of discussion when we do discuss the policies that do contain our listed committees in the handbook.
Any other?
Can we just double check? I thought it was in 213. No, it's not, okay.
Been a management council. That's not been a board committee historically. And just recently, I think former Chair White joined per my request, pending our last letter. So I asked him to join me in the APAC council at the very end of the year. But it wasn't a standing thing that the former chair participated in. That was my ask of him.
And I think my concern would be anytime adding an advisory council, it creates more work for district administration. And given the state of our resources, that being stretched as thin as they are, that would be a concern of mine.
And I would just say that wasn't the intent. It's an existing committee. I think what Dr. Thomas said is it's a management committee and a chair was already attending it. I just thought it would show our support for the committee that we, basically. But I'm happy, we can move it to the board handbook and talk about it under our 213 committee. I'm fine with that. So that's fine.
So we're going to rescind this amended motion.
We have to vote on it.
We have to vote on the amended motion. With including the APAC committee.
Correct.
I'm going to take a roll call vote on that. We'll start with you, Director Atkinson.
Nay.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
can I just restate the motion?
So the motion would be approving of the board committee assignments with the amendment or with the addition of adding an APAC advisory committee. So we will vote on that. I'll take a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Director Atkinson.
And-
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, and knowing that we're going to move it to a discussion
Moving it.
later in the month.
Right,
Thank you.
yes. But that wasn't the
That wasn't part
original
of the original
motion.
It's
Right.
not part of the motion, but just
That's-
part of the understanding.
It's kind of the understanding, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Director Atkinson.
So aye.
Director Johnson. Aye. Director Mason.
Nay, with the understanding it's going to be.
Director Olstad.
Nay.
Director France.
Nay.
Director Smith.
Nay.
And I'm a nay. So that fails. And we will go back to the original, I'll take a motion to approve the board committee's assignment as laid out. Can I get a motion?
One more thing before we
Yes.
make that. I just wanted to just say very quickly, the Southwest Metro meeting is on Tuesdays at 5:30, not 6. Just wanted to make that
Oh, a
quick
correction.
clerical correction.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So can I get a motion
I'll make
to
a motion.
approve the board committee assignments as handed out?
So made.
Director Olstad and Director France, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next up is open discussion of meeting and procedures format. I'd like to say that we've recently reviewed our meeting and procedures format during our 200 policies review and adoption, but I will open up that agenda item to any discussion. Hearing none, we'll go down to the next agenda item, the in-service discussion. If there are any requests, I will receive them here.
My only question is, and I was going to bring this to your attention, so the board retreat is on January 27th. That is following, the Tuesday following a board meeting. And just knowing how long our staff, are here on board meetings. And then I was just wondering, there was another date proposed, and I just didn't know if that other date worked better for the majority
The
of the
other
board.
date
or
was,
The 22nd, I believe.
it was the 20th. It was 1 week prior. And that one did not work for a majority
Oh, okay.
of
That's
the
fine.
board members.
Okay, I just wanted to bring attention that it's the following of a board. The
Yes.
board retreat,
Yep.
so, okay.
And that was vetted with Martha and the staff. Anything else? Hearing none, I will take a motion for adjourning. A motion and a second.
So made.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will adjourn, we'll take a short recess and then move to our regular scheduled our regular meeting of the board.
There's like pros and cons to both, a lot of it's like money, and then, yeah, I also want to stay close to home too. But yeah.
Good spot to do laundry.
Yeah. So, for
Good
sure.
evening, everyone. Again. Thank you. I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Board of Education today, January 12th at 6:06 PM to order. Please rise with me again for the Pledge of Allegiance as able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All board members are present, and we will start off with Laker Pride.
Thank you, Chair Bullion.
Thomas.
This evening, we've got 2 points to recognize. First are the 4th grade teachers at Red Tail Ridge. Through strong collaboration, purposeful use of data, and faithful implementation of the Bridges math curriculum, this team achieved impressive growth on FastBridge and strong MCA math results last year as well. And so tonight, we'd like to highlight the data practices that contributed to that team's success. And with that, Principal Yetzer is here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Chair Bullion and board directors, and Dr. Thomas. It is my pleasure to be here to highlight our 4th grade Red Tail Ridge team. As Dr. Thomas mentioned, we saw some wonderful, amazing growth in our FastBridge math, and we've been seeing that as we've been implementing it now for our 3rd year. And back in October, Jenny Zumbush and Jen Maloney connected with me and said, we've got some additional data here we really want to show you and your 4th grade team. And we really want to dig deeper and ask them questions on what are they actually doing to get these results. So I have here with me, come on up. I want to introduce the 4 teachers here. First is Sarah Haug, Miranda Hanstad, Karen Grohl, and Aaron Roberts. And I also want to recognize Lisa Lozier, who was a 4th grade teacher last year, who worked on that team as well, that helped with these amazing results. So I'm going to let Jen Maloney share kind of what we went through, what they found, and what we found out about this amazing learning team.
Pull up the presentation. How do I help? I don't know where it is, sorry. Do you know? I know, it's not there.
Yeah, try. Is it this one?
Yeah, yep. Hopefully, there we go.
Okay.
Perfect. I will start out just talking through the data that we looked at with the team, and then I'm hoping you all want to talk about like what you shared. So one of the opportunities we get in assessment and continuous improvement department is to continually look at how are we doing as a system, what can we learn from the staff that are utilizing the amazing resources they have, and leading into those instructional practices, and where do we have pockets that look different than the rest of the district. Jenny and I actually get to do a road show, including some teams here in the audience as well, along with this 4th grade team, about why were your results looking different? Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in your classroom every single day with your learners that are yielding these type of results? Another fun fact with this team, I know that this isn't the first year we should have been doing this conversation with you. So kudos to you as well. So first we looked at their FastBridge data. So 4th grade last year, from fall, winter, spring, all the way on the left-hand side, right? We have a lot of learners over that benchmark expectation and a shrinking number of students who are needing some additional support. I know that this was also a team that was early adopters of using tools within Bridges like a screener, where we are checking a month before a unit starts. What skills do you have, prerequisite skills do you have under control as a learner, and where can we shore up some things before that unit even starts? So instead of thinking about it as responsive or reactive, right, we're being proactive, and this team went all in on that approach, and I think that yielded them some great results last year. Additionally, when you think about that, like, right, we talked about going deep before and that rigor. When you have results that look like this, where 87% of your students are over that threshold of the benchmark, that sustains it when you're going deep. so that when they come in this fall, that same group of learners, there's no such thing as a summer slide, right? They don't regress because you know that what you're doing sticks, and it's not just a quick and easy fix. We're not teaching them tricks. We're not teaching them songs. We're really going deep with our resource so that they maintain that, and our middle school friends will be excited that they maintain that so they can go even deeper when they get to you guys. And then we looked at their, like Barb said, we looked at their MCA results. Notably, right, Ridgetail Ridge, and we would assume, right, we would surely hope that we are outperforming the state. What stood out to me in this one, though, particularly, was that top blue category. That's your exceeds mark. And so my question for this group is, well, that looks really different than maybe the rest or some other neighboring school districts or even locally here. What did you do to get that result? That was very intriguing to me. I know for a fact this group is not coming and knocking on my door saying, I need extra things, I need enrichment things, I need to figure out a way to do pullout. They're doing this with the resource that's provided to them within their own classroom through those practices. I also know this is a team that will say, come to our learning team and talk about our data with us. We want to analyze our tests. How are we scoring them? You guys have been lockstep on what does it mean to get an exceeds in one class is the same as the other class, or what it means to pass a test is the same. I think that this is really important, and I think our middle school colleagues in math will agree with me here. This isn't just in one strand or one subject. This is you're growing that depth and understanding across the math spectrum, whether it be geometry and measurement, data analysis, so their school results are on the left-hand side, you can see every strand is strong. Sometimes, if we're only emphasizing that procedural fluency, that number and operation segment might be stronger than the others, but we're fading off. Nope, this team was able to have strong results in all 4 categories in the MCAs. So we looked at that together as well. And then the questions that we just had for them, like what are you doing to move those students beyond that surface level understanding, to really go deeper in your reasoning application? What has shifted? What is your team doing differently, right? So that they're able to, because to get to that exceeds, remember we did this exercise, was it last year already? Last year already that, we were talking about what does it mean to be at a meets level or exceeds on that MCA, or really just understanding the standard at that level. To be able to do that, you have to prepare kids for that. That can't just be that doesn't accidentally just happen. So we really wanted to talk to them about how did you get them ready for those more complex tasks? And then what would you share with other colleagues? What would you let go of? What would you do differently? That's what we were trying to learn from them. Do you want to talk about your reflections, or would you like me to? Okay, go ahead.
I can go.
Please.
Ahead. So to answer some of those questions, well, first and foremost, we stuck to the curriculum. Sarah and I were part of some of the teachers that piloted the curriculum, and then before we adopted it as a whole district. And so first and foremost, we are teaching what is in the curriculum. Jennifer mentioned some of the things about the enrichment and stuff. There's all of that built into the curriculum. And to push some of our learners who might need the extra challenge or who are showing good understanding, making them explain how it is that they got that answer, because a lot of them struggle with that. When we first implemented this curriculum, they could solve it quickly, but they had no idea how they did it, or they weren't able to verbalize that. They just said, well, I just did it. So we really push them to explain their thinking, teach other students their strategies. We're in a part of our curriculum right now where they're testing out different strategies. They solve the problem one way, but then they're challenged to, can you find another way to solve that problem? Which was more efficient? So just finding opportunities in our curriculum that way to push our students thinking even further and having to have those conversations with their peers really does challenge and push all of our learners. We bring screeners, checkpoints, assessments together as a team, and we talk about our results, especially with the screeners and checkpoints. If we see, our group of students are struggling with this concept or this type of question, what are we going to do in our next lesson to really hit that, or to kind of address those situations, those kind of concepts with our students. Trying to think of what else we talked about, but so part of our curriculum is also doing Number Corner and teaching that every day. Our Number Corner usually addresses concepts that are going to be coming up in our next unit. So I think it was like our October Number Corner was addressing fractions, and then in our next unit was our fraction unit. So we're getting, they're getting their toes dipped into these different concepts to prepare them for the unit where it is that focus of the whole unit. So doing our workplaces and finding if, using the screeners, if we have students who are showing that they struggle with something, going to maybe third grade's Number Corner games, workplace games, and pulling those and working with a small group of students before we get to that unit so that we can maybe have a little refresher or practice those skills. So by the time we get to that unit, they have a little more confidence or they remembered what they did in third grade and are ready for that coming unit. So we're trying to just really incorporate everything that the curriculum has and use everything in there to meet all of the needs of our students. Great job. Thanks.
And they're underscoring their own technique. I mean, the teaching techniques here are amazing, and these folks are always willing to open their classroom doors for anybody to come watch. And they're always asking reflective questions about what do we need to do next? How can we even get better? So I just appreciate you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very promising, and thank you for sharing. Very promising results.
I think Sarah has yours.
Thank you. What do you want up next?
Barb.
Sure.
And then you guys gotta go right up
Okay.
for a picture. Okay. Just right around.
Thank you, team. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and then the second, I'll turn on my microphone. Also just want to give recognition for our 2025-26 ASBO Meritorious Budget Award. This is our second year in a row that Prior Lake Savage Area Schools received the ASBO International Meritorious Budget Award. This national honor recognizes the district's commitment to clear, transparent, and well-communicated budget practices. I can't tell you the amount of times I actually hear community members reference the budget book and different questions that they might have, and it's something that we've posted and made available. The Meritorious Budget Award is presented to school districts whose budget documents meet high national standards for financial planning and public communication. Budgets are reviewed by experienced school finance professionals to ensure they are accurate, comprehensive, and easy for community members to understand. And this recognition reflects our district's ongoing dedication to responsible financial stewardship and open communication with students, staff, and families, and our taxpayers. And I want to really thank Lisa and the entire business staff, along with Christy and Liz, who've done a lot of the design aspect of this, and numerous other senior leaders who've contributed to the content within the book. And so on behalf of us here at the district, Lisa, I want to congratulate you, and I'll turn it to you for any comments that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. I would say that the work that was put into this book by Andrea Bradford and Christy Mussman and Liz as well was immense. And I know when I started, having seen the book for the first time, wondering about the second year of this and trying to maintain that quality as we move forward. I think it's something that it's a dedication to doing something that we know is the right thing for our community so that they can better understand our budget. Budget can be difficult when it comes to schools. So I think that they've done a great job, and I appreciate all their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, well deserved. Well deserved. Thank you. A lot of work. All right, next up on the agenda is the superintendent report. Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, just three quick things. Just this past week, you may have seen, we did Storytime Live again. This is our opportunity to welcome our incoming future kindergartners. And it was a great opportunity to connect with students and families and community members who dialed in for that Facebook Live event, building excitement for kindergarten as well as our ability to promote literacy. And also continues to help families remember to enroll as soon as possible. So that was a really fun event. I also wanted to just share with our broader community that we went through the process of going through boundary adjustments, and we've gotten a few emails that have come into the board and to my office as well. And I just want to share with our community that we understand that change, particularly boundaries, can be a very impactful thing with our community and with our families. And we've certainly heard a few stories of some impacts, and that's very real for our families. I want to just honor that. We also know that we are planning boundaries for 8,500 students, and we cannot customize to all the unique situations that families might find themselves in. And so know that our hearts understand the situations that some of our families are going through, but we also have to look at the greater good and the total picture. So just to give a quick iteration of that process, so we're holding to our boundary adjustments as they currently are, and then we will start our staffing process in mid-February-ish timeframe, and that allows us to begin to see how many classroom sections and FTE, et cetera, that we're going to need for the upcoming school year. We will close out the school year and then monitor enrollment throughout the summer and kind of pick that back up in August, where we do kind of a month-long review of what happened, in September, where we do a month-long review as to the ins and outs over the summer. And then, as many of you know, October 1 is when we have our counts, having a line drawn from where we begin that count process, which doesn't get rectified until December. But generally speaking, we then spend from October to December scrubbing all the enrollment counts, also cooperating with MDE to make sure all of our data systems are on the same page. And then here we are, and we start the whole routine over again. And I just really wanted to be a little bit more open around that process so that our community understands this isn't just a random thing that we do. This is a very regular cadence that we do this, and as necessary and as eligible, there are unique situations that we take into consideration, and certainly families can talk with their local school administrator about that as well. So I just want to give a quick update on those boundary adjustments. And then lastly, I know as part of our calendar conversation a couple months ago, there were some questions around using Red Tail Ridge as a polling site. And so I just want to share that, we'll continue to evaluate options that are before us, but in our conversations with Scott County and trying to see if we can mitigate, that site, what we are learning at this time is that, another site would have to, commensurate site would have to be given towards that area, which is within a 1 mile area radius of that current voting site. And for us, that leaves us one of two schools. So we're going to basically shift from one school to one of other two schools. So at this time, there's no alternative to a polling site. But if things change, I'll just let the board and our community know if there will be any kind of changes to that site in the future. So those are my quick reports.
Thank you. Next up are a space for proclamation. Tonight we will have a proclamation on Minnesota Paraeducators Appreciation Week. And given that I had the honor to work as a para, I would be honored to give this proclamation. Prior Lake Savage Area Schools recognizes January 26th through 30th, 2026 as Paraeducators Appreciation Week. Our paraeducators are vital to our district's mission and our student success. This week, we express our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to their dedication. Whereas we recognize they collaborate with teachers to provide care, support, and a high-quality education. Our para-educators contribute to instructional support and individual student assistance that fosters educational success. And whereas the support and services provided by para-educators are essential to student achievement, enhancing the effectiveness of our schools. And whereas Prior Lake Savage Area Schools is committed to excellence in education and recognize the important role that para-educators play in ensuring educational success. And therefore, let it be resolved, the Board of Education extends its appreciation, encourages the entire PLSAS community to join in expressing personal thanks to our para-educators for their unwavering dedication and commitment to our students. Director
Thank you.
Truca.
Thank you, Chair Bullion and Board, for recognizing this group. I'm here because the majority of our the majority of our para-educators across our district are special ed, but I do want to recognize that there are other people in the role on that para contract too, and we appreciate them just as much, because regardless of the assignment that a para holds, each and every one of them play a critical role in student success. They support students, they strengthen classrooms, and thank you again for recognizing them, because they truly do advance our commitment to student-centered schools. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Next up is the open forum. In accordance to our policy, a 15-minute time period is set aside. And we have 3 speakers tonight, it looks like. The first up is Sarah Strege. Is this Strege? And this is on funding concerns.
Put my glasses on, makes me look smart. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Thomas. My name is Sarah Strege, and I am the co-vice president of PLSEA. I stand here tonight representing the hundreds of educators who make up the Prior Lake Savage Schools. The recent $4.1 million budget reduction package isn't just a line item on a spreadsheet. It is a lived reality every day in our classrooms. I will be sharing feedback from our teachers describing their current classroom realities. First, from an elementary school teacher. As class sizes continue to grow, students' academic, emotional, and behavioral needs continue to increase. Please be a partner. Advocate for teachers. Work with us. We need meaningful action for meaningful change. Help us by passing levies, funding classrooms, and supporting the ever-increasing student needs by advocating for the lived realities of teachers. Please stand by us on this journey toward progress. From a high school teacher. I'm writing to let you know how challenging it is to teach a lab class when I have 39 students in a room, but lab space for only 24. As much as I'd love to get kids into the lab, it's just not safe or practical to do so. From an elementary school teacher. I have 28 third graders. My students with learning disabilities have me to read and scribe for them in the classroom. My students needing reading interventions get them from me. Small group instruction for math is planned and delivered by me. Enrichment for gifted and talented students is provided by me. Behavior interventions are supported by me. All of my students need me. In other districts, there are multiple interventionists hired for these different situations. My plate is so full that things are falling off every day. Our students deserve better. And from a high school teacher. Prior Lake likes to compare itself to other large suburban schools like Minnetonka, Wayzata, and Edina. However, we cannot serve up a world-class education with our current class sizes. I teach 36 more students this year than last year, which is the equivalency of an entire additional classroom. This exposes how paying less per pupil yields a cheaper result. My students are crammed in a small room at the high school, and we do the best with what we have. However, it is not a world-class environment, nor does it help us compete with other suburban schools. We are a district that prides ourselves on academic excellence. It's on our banners, it's frequently referenced by you folks here, and it's what every parent at Prior Lake Savage expects when they drop their children off at our doors. But tonight, I have to speak frankly to you. There is a widening chasm between the excellence we promise and the resources that you folks are providing us. We are being asked to build a world-class future for our students using a foundation that is being systematically dismantled, and we need you to do better. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Yeah. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Thomas. My name is Allie Havorka. I am also co-vice president of PLSEA, and I also have some messages and lived experiences I will be sharing from our teachers. So first, from a middle school teacher, they say we need to advocate for all students. There are too many students in each class with needs that are difficult to meet with the limited resources we have. We need smaller class sizes to best support student learning. From an elementary teacher, I want to share my reality this year with you. 28 years of teaching in the Prior Lake Savage schools, 27 kindergarten students, 6 EL students, 3 students in the PST or SPED referral process, 3 readers who need to be challenged, 2 life skills students, 1 identified SPED student, 1 student with aggressive behaviors, and only 1 teacher in the class to meet all of these needs. Please consider lowering the discussion cap of 26 to something more reasonable. Our learners deserve less students in a classroom so their teachers can meet their needs. Also, from an elementary teacher, I'm writing to you because I have 29 second graders in class this year. This is the second year that I've had the highest class size at my grade level in the district. It is not easy to be able to do what I hope to do with behaviors and space issues. I cannot create an appropriate learning environment that meets everyone's needs. Another elementary teacher. In 20 years of teaching, this is the hardest one yet. The needs of kids are increasing with less para support and larger class sizes. My heart breaks for these kids not getting what they need and what they deserve. So keeping all of these stories in mind and thinking about the READ Act and everything that comes with that, literacy excellence cannot be achieved through mandates alone. It requires paraprofessionals, reading interventionists, and manageable workloads. You cannot cut the supports for reading and then expect the scores to rise. The board's strict adherence to the optimizing of resources has resulted in the elimination of Laker Online, the scaling back or at times not even replacing technology, and next year the closure of Westwood. We are seeing the Laker advantage being chipped away. Maximizing resources such as these actually could incentivize revenue. Instead, the choice has been to cut, and then cut some more. Students, families, and staff deserve better than the actions of the board over the past few years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Chair Bullion, members of the board, Superintendent Thomas, good evening. My name is Joe Mesnick, President of the PLSEA, and I also have some messages that our teachers have shared with you. You will all receive some postcards this evening or in the future days here with Martha giving them to you. From a middle school teacher, as we explore levy options, I hope it becomes clear that PLSAS has a revenue issue. We are at the bottom when it compared to other local districts in per pupil funding. Years of underfunding are taking a toll on our system. At the middle school, we have 1 reading and 1 math interventionist for the whole entire campus. Our schools need more support, and that takes money. Please, I implore you to support a levy to bring our district to at least the funding average. From an elementary teacher, I would like you to really understand what my reality is currently. I've had more students this year than any other. This year, my conference slots were overfilled. I had to schedule 50 additional minutes outside of this time for conferences. As a parent of 3 children, I no longer make enough money in this district to support my family. We utilized the free lunches at the park this past summer that the Burnsville School District provided. I have a student in my class this year who is very aggressive and harms his classmates or myself daily, almost daily, pardon me. I wish I had space to write more. Please come to our schools and talk with teachers to see for yourself. As you have heard tonight, teachers see the impact of increased class size targets every day. When a kindergartner or a 4th grade teacher has several additional students, that isn't just more desks. It is fewer minutes for one-on-one intervention. It is less time to spot a child who's struggling emotionally. Currently, PLSAS spends less per pupil than any surrounding suburban district. Our educators are tired of being told to do more with less. Placing signs in our buildings that say world-class wildly misrepresent what happens as a direct result of multiple years of balancing a budget through cuts. When we lose electives at the secondary level and support staff at the elementary level, we aren't just saving money, we are limiting the opportunities for all of our students. We understand the financial constraints and the outcome of the 2024 levy. However, the budget is a reflection of values and priorities. We urge this board to move beyond the mantra of fiscal responsibility and a return to committed educational leadership. We need a budget that prioritizes the classroom. At some point, this board needs to act together to create revenue streams instead of a constant reduction. We need a plan that ensures teachers aren't burnt out by October because they're playing the role of teacher, interventionist, counselor, and security guard all at once. In closing, the teachers of PLSEA want to be your partners moving forward, but partnership requires transparency and shared admission that the current path is unsustainable. If we want to return Prior Lake Savage to being a destination district, then we must invest in the students who learn and the teachers who deliver that education every single day. Prior Lake Savage students deserve excellence, not just the bare minimum that a depleted budget allows. Our community, teachers, and most importantly, our students deserve more than last place. Let's work together to find a way back to the standards this community expects. Thank you very much.
Next up on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So made.
By Director France,
Second.
second by Director Olsted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Yes.
Could I just mention on the consent agenda that we have district retirement? And I just want to recognize Katie Sherman, who is the current Five Hawks principal. She has spent 6 years with us here in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, and I just want to thank her for her time and dedication to our community, but also her 34 years in public education. She will be greatly missed, and we wish her well on her retirement.
Yes, best wishes.
Yes,
to
thank you.
Katie. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Next on the agenda is the resolution for acceptance of gifts. I'll entertain a motion to accept the gifts.
So made.
By Director Atkinson,
Second.
second. By Director Smith. And the gifts are, the donors are Prior Lake Rotary Foundation in the amount of $1,832.14 for literacy support materials at Edgewood School. Next donor is Heather Osterberg in the amount of $375 for first grade classroom items for Red Tail Ridge. Next donor is Prior Lake Rotary for gift cards for the Bridges ALC gift cards. Next is Blue Vera Equipment Solutions in the amount of $5,700 for donation to the MinCaps program, Nate Hack. We accept these donations with gratitude. This is a roll call vote, so we'll start with you, Director Atkinson.
Aye.
Director Johnson? Aye. Director Mason? Aye. Director Olsted?
Aye.
Director France?
Aye.
Director Smith?
Aye.
And aye. That passes 7-0. Next up is personnel items. Director Cawthorn? None at that time, okay. We have no unfinished business at this time. Next on the agenda is new business. First up is the revised revenue and expenditure budget for fiscal year 25-26, and I will entertain a motion and a second for that. By Director France, by Director Mason, and Director Ryder.
Thank you. There are 3 documents included in tonight's agenda, and I would like to start with the fiscal year 26 summary page fund balance, where, as we last spoke about the revised budget, the desire of the board at that point was for us to come back with a budget that was no longer showing a deficit for the current fiscal year, as well as replenishing our unassigned fund balance above the 8%, which is in policy, as what we will strive for. So as you can see by the summary page fund balance for January 12th of 26, we are at 8.46. I'm going to enlarge this just so I can make sure I'm seeing it right. 8.46% for unassigned fund balance. And we do have a revenues in excess of expenditures by $646,602. There is a second document, the one that is stated are labeled FY26 adopted to revised budget. And you can see a little bit more detail of how it is that we got to that point. The revenue sources is really where much of this came in. So the first step was, after the last discussion, to go back and verify our enrollment within the newest model that we could get, as well as then also utilizing the November 30th revenue projection model that the Minnesota Department of Education put out. With those updates, the assumptions that are made previously in the model would have taken you back to the prior year as an identification of what you would anticipate seeing in those state categorical aids. And by using the November 30th model, it actually ties it now straight to the dollars that are being allocated to districts at this point in time and being paid out on a metered basis. So we were able to capture quite a bit more revenue in our budget than had previously been identified at the adopted, because at the adopted time, you just don't know these things yet. And as more information becomes available, that's why you revise the budget mid-year. So with that in mind, there was an additional, if I go to the bottom of that sheet, you'll see for the revenues, we had talked about the $3.4 million for special ed. We had discussed that. But in addition, there was another $1 million, $1,081,650 that was identified. Some of this was grants, some of it was dollars that were coming in higher than we anticipated. Some of this you would anticipate seeing at this time of year, but you may not necessarily see at the beginning of the year. So that total revenue change is $4.577 million, and on the expenditure side, much of those expenditures are very similar to what we saw before. You will see there are 2 added revenues for the fees charged for ACT FY26. So we are looking to charge for the ACT exam, and that would generate $43,500. We're also looking for revenue that is going to be coming in for remarketing agreements of legacy devices, in essence, old devices that we are selling back and receiving revenue for. So with that 52,744, that added and contributed to the revenue change. And then in addition, we went back through and found another 79,940 of reductions in expenditures that would not be made for the remainder of the year. So along with everything else we had talked about as far as adjustments to the expenditure budget, we had a net change in fund balance of $1,629,040, and that has shifted the revenues to exceed now the expenditures. And the amount of that excess is $646,602. The third document that you have is the resolution. And in the resolution, it does include all of the other funds as well as the general fund, which is what has been our discussion mostly to date. But this shows all the revenue and all the expenditures, and it is this that the motion is for the ask is for the board to approve the district's revised 25-26 budget. With this, there is an anticipated increase to the overall fund balance and an anticipated restoration of the unassigned fund balance to above 8%. And so with that, that concludes my discussion of the revised budget.
I'll open it up for discussion or questions. Director Mason.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together. I know we have gone through a few iterations and taking the feedback of the finance committee. I think this
Director France.
Yes, thank you very, very much for this. And you did portend the changes, and I'm glad that they did come out somewhat in our favor. I have a couple questions about the ACT charging as well as the reduction in expenditures from departments. How much will families and what will that be required to pay individually, and what will that do to our requirement to have college readiness assessment as we're supposed to do by statute? Do we, if people refuse to pay, does that put us in jeopardy?
So, as I understand, there is a fee that can be charged. I mean, essentially, the schools are asked to provide the test, right? But we are not asked to necessarily bear the full cost of preparing that, or providing that test. If a student were to go elsewhere to take the ACT, they would find that their test costs would be in upwards of $70, okay? So what we're looking to do is charge $60 for these exams, and that saves them some dollars. I'm sorry, it says $58. So with regard to this, there are some schools around us and statewide that absolutely do have the opportunity for families to contribute towards this cost. And then there are some that don't. So it is kind of a, which way do you go with that? In taking a look at this, this does not, if there's someone who is not able to pay, free reduced eligible, certainly that is a waiver and would be acknowledged and understood. We would be utilizing our student data system to be able to put these fees out there on the family accounts. And then if there is an eligibility, that would be waived at that point.
What happens, you didn't, the second half of that question was, we have a requirement to have some sort of college assessment, college readiness assessment. If families just decide not to take it at all this year, what is that? Do we have any control over that? Should we? Is there going to be any type of, I don't know decide that because it's the first time I think we've ever done this.
Yeah, and again, there's mixed districts in terms of charging for fees or not charging for fees. And it's kind of all over the board. Our obligation is to offer the assessment. If families, because even now, even paying for it, families can still choose and not to take it. So there's no, right, there's some, they just don't show or whatever. So that's not a penalty on the district itself.
Okay, I just didn't know if we drop below a threshold or something like that, that then we have to have some other method of college readiness assessment.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know what
we
the
have,
rules are,
we have,
so we've never
yeah,
done that.
no, it's not something that would be on our end. It would be something that would still be a family component.
And where were the reduction in expenses made on the 79,940?
Most of those adjustments were made in the area of curriculum in slowing down our process of implementation.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none?
Oh, I was just going to say, I thank you for your hard work on this. I think it's our community, how do I say, will appreciate the fact that we're operating with a positive fund balance and that we're not in a statutory operating situation. Grateful for the additional revenue that we received to be able to help balance out this budget. So thank you for all your hard work.
Roll call vote is requested. I'll start with you, Director Atkinson.
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
Director Mason?
Aye.
Director Olstad?
Aye.
Director France?
Aye.
Director Smith?
Aye.
And aye, that passes 7-0. Next up is the operating levy discussion. This is report only and no board action is requested. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Chair Bullion, members of the board. Just sharing tonight our first conversation with you and really trying to get shared understanding on the financial aspects of the levy. And then based upon various thresholds that the board is comfortable with, should this be the direction that we move forward with, we'll then bring forth a programmatic plan that aligns to that financial dollar amount. And just to give the board another update in terms of timing, so as we looked further into when we would go for a levy, as we shared with you before, there were about 3 opportunities for us to go forward. One would be May, one would be August, and the other would be your more standard November timeframe. The May and August, as I shared earlier, would only be eligible for a mail-in ballot. And as we were costing this out, and Martha checked into kind of where this would fall in terms of the mailings and et cetera, we are upwards of $115,000 that would cost us if we were to go outside of the traditional November timeline. So I don't believe it would be feasible or in this district's best interest, considering our financial situation, that we would go for a voting process that would be maybe not the norm and probably perhaps suspect with some in our community versus going to a traditional poll. And I don't think it would be $115,000 wise spent. So our recommendation as we continue to move forward is building out conversations that would be in alignment with our more traditional November timeline. And as we get the presentation pulled, we will begin.
Technology.
Sorry, just one moment.
I'm going to see if Liz can come up here.
I just saw it for a split second.
Oh, wait, maybe this isn't. Never mind.
Okay, now how do I get that? So it's. It's a PDF.
Oh, I see.
We can just use a PDF
Yeah,
and just
I
scroll.
think
Let's just
we'll
do
just
that.
have to scroll it, sorry.
That's right. Thank you for your patience.
No problem, thank you.
So we have asked Ellers and Associates to assist us in preparing slides that will assist us all in learning a little bit about our options. And the first thing we want to talk about was alluded to earlier by some folks as well. And the 7 county metro area school districts, as you take a look at what it is that each school district may have, that which is in orange is the operating levy, and that which is in blue is a capital projects levy. And as you can see then, there is some dollar amounts that are listed here with, make this just a little bit bigger, where you can see like the cap is at that 22-26 amount, and you can see where those are. You're looking for our district, you do need to go down a ways, as we are on the list down here as 624. And we only have our operating levy. There is no capital projects levy for us. So that's where things stand at this point in time. So let's now talk about what it is that tax base by property type looks like. For us, we are largely a residential homestead district with, under the referendum calculations, it's 76.5% being residential homestead, 17.8% other residential, and then you see the other amounts for commercial and industrial. There's a separate calculation called net tax capacity, and that is used for some of the calculations, and that is 72.2% residential. A lot of times these are different, largely different in other districts that may have significant more commercial industrial than compared to us. And that means then that there may be more decisions made one way or the other based on those percentages. But for us, they're very, very much similar. And as we take a closer look then at our property data over the years, you can see that the average residential estimated market value from 2018 was $333,887. Now that same home may be $521,036 as an average residential estimated market value. So this is the crux of our issue. We have a gen ed formula that is calculated, and the dotted line that you see on this graph is what we have received over the years. The solid line is what could have been received if it were based upon inflation. And so what we now see happening significantly more now than ever before is this gap between the two numbers. And that is the gen ed formula allowance, that is dollars coming to school districts that allows us to use those dollars towards what our needs are, regardless of what they are. So meaning that it doesn't have to be a restricted means to use the funds. It's however we need to use those funds. So that is our great concern. As we take a look at our options, we have the operating referendum option. There are 6 points here that are talked about. These 6 points identified on this slide are all about the operating referendum. And so you can only do this in November. The amount is stated per pupil. The current is $623.97 per pupil unit. Our cap is $2,398 per pupil unit, a maximum of 10 years, and it is spread on the referendum market value. It may be used for any operating or capital expenditures, so it's broad use. So that's what an operating referendum can bring you. So taking a look at our voter-approved referendum allowances currently, we have the one at $623.97. And you can see that this is one in which the board does have the ability to renew this without voter approval. And that renewal period of time began July 1, 2025, and does run through June 15th of 2027. So at any given time, the board could choose to renew as is. Ours does not have inflation on it, and it would continue as that for another 10 years then, if it were approved for renewal. Where did it start? It started at the $923.97 approved authority per pupil unit. And with this, you can see over the years, we asked the question, what if it had had inflation attached to it? What would that have brought us from a revenue perspective? And that's what's in the last column to the right. I honestly didn't realize that it would be this much money over a 10-year period. It's pretty significant when you look at that. And it shocked me myself too as well. So it turns out that $12,597,504 is additional revenue that could have been received if we just had had the inflation factor on the question. What would that have meant for our taxpayers? So this is a graph that shows that if the 2017 voter-approved operating referendum authority had included an inflation adjustment, we would have received approximately $12.6 million in additional funding. The taxes attributable to that referendum would have remained relatively stable. Those are the ones that are the orange line that you see going across the top of the page. What actually was the amount that taxpayers needed to pay, you see in the dark blue line. So it didn't result in the fact that that referendum cost that same amount from there every 10 years. Because of the growth of our referendum market value in our community, it did spread that load, you might say. And so therefore, the average home didn't have to pay as much towards it, okay? So the average home, as you see in 2018, $333,887 at the bottom of that graph, all the way up to the current, or a projected amount of $536,771 for 2027. And so the point being that an inflationary clause, although it might sound like a lot, when you consider the growth of a community as well at the same time, it doesn't end up being much more. There's really only a $24 difference between the lowest point and the highest, or the ending point of $395. I guess it's $29.52 from the highest point. So that's just a bit of information about that tax impact and how it might sound like a lot, but when it comes to actual calculations, it turns out it doesn't end up being as much out of the pocket. Our school board renewal information, this is statewide. This is showing each year the schools that had the opportunity to renew their referendums and what did they do about it. Did they revoke and replace? Did they ask voters for something brand new? Did they board approve it? And so you can see that in the last 3 years, we have had 4 different revoke and replaces. Otherwise, largely, districts have chosen to board renew. When you board renew, it is as it was presented and voted on initially, that is renewed. For 27 and 28, there is still some districts that have authorities out there. We are in the bottom row. We are part of the 34, okay? So that needs to be decided. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a tax impact. What if we were to do something a little different? We have 2 examples here for an increase to our current referendum. So this is all considering above and beyond what we currently are at, okay? The table shows the estimated market value of homes in our district with a tax impact shown. The first column is adding $364 per pupil unit, generating approximately $3,341,141. The second column is adding $762 per pupil unit, generating approximately $7,646,000. So you can see that in an average home, highlighted in bold, $525,000, that's $180 a year or $15 a month. The 377 is almost at $32 per month. So those are 2 options that we have before us. When talking about budget options, language has to state that per pupil amount shall increase annually by rate of inflation if that's the intent. Annual inflation factor is not determined by us as a school district, rather that is factors that are provided by the Minnesota Department of Education. So we don't know where those numbers are going to land exactly. That's dependent upon what the Minnesota Department of Education determines. When looking at operating referendum ballot options, there's some sample language that you see here. This is just 2 examples. The first paragraph is an example of a straight increase with inflation. Actually, I don't see inflation in there. That's without inflation. Oh, no, it is. increase each year by the rate of inflation, beginning with taxes payable in 2028. So that's language that you could expect to see on a ballot if it were just that. Next, then, the second paragraph is an example of a revoke of the current referendum and replacement with a levy amount increased each year with inflation. So the first paragraph is, if you wanted to just have the board renew what we have and do something additional by itself with inflation, then you could see that possibly happening that way, right? The second paragraph is revoking what we currently have and of the $623.97 per pupil, and replacing it with authorization with a new authorization, put in the dollar amount, and the proposed referendum revenue authorization would be applicable for 10 years, and increase each year at the rate of inflation, beginning with taxes payable 2028. So those are two examples of what that ballot language might look like. In both cases, you have to say that it's going to be an increase to taxes. That's just how that works. There is another avenue, and that's a capital projects levy referendum. This is different in that it is not based upon the referendum market value, but rather it is based upon the tax rate, the net tax capacity. So a tax rate is set and is applied each year, generating revenue through property taxes for a maximum of 10 years. And in this case, the money may be used for technology and capital projects, but it's restricted to the statute that defines how you use capital money. And that's the only thing you can use those funds for. This levy is calculated on the net tax capacity of the district and not the referendum market value as is stated. So how do they compare? So as you take a look at this comparison, what they're based upon is different. So for example, the referendum market value, that is going to be based upon the per pupils served. So over the years with declining enrollment, you have less referendum money than coming forward towards you. With net tax capacity, it's based upon the growth of your community. If your community is growing, then you're going to see an increase in those dollars. If the valuation within your community is declining, you would see a decline in those dollars. Funding source, there is some opportunity for state aid when you're talking about an operating referendum. There is not with a capital projects levy. The authority under the operating is per pupil, whereas it's that tax rate for the capital project levy. There is an inflationary factor available for the operating referendum, but not with the capital project levy. There is a maximum amount for the operating referendum of $2,398 per pupil. There is no maximum on the capital project levy. The allowable uses are different. Any type of operating expenses available under the operating levy, you're restricted to technology or capital expenditures under the capital project levy. Both have a maximum length of 10 years. One of them does allow for a board automatic renewal one time, and that is under the operating referendum, not the capital projects levy. The tax impact of an operating referendum versus a capital projects levy. This is where, when I mentioned earlier, that some districts around us may have very different rates, mostly because they have a difference in the commercial and industrial percentage. And when that's the case, you see very big differences between what an operating referendum tax impact is compared to the capital projects levy. But because we are mostly a residential community and district, you're going to see that that's very close. In fact, it's, you know, the dollar amounts that the tax impact is per valuation of home is very minimal. It does increase with the commercial and apartments and residential, but not with the residential homes. So when would new revenue be available? Should there be a vote on November 3rd, 2026 for an operating referendum vote, that information then would be included in our tax levy and approved by the board, certified in December of 2026. The taxes would be collected in the calendar year 2027 by our from our taxpayers, and it would be available to us for our budget of 27-28 school year. That is when we would recognize those funds. If it were voted upon in November of 26, there would be no gap from our current levy funding to whatever would be approved at that point in time for the next year. Should it be delayed in any way, there would be a gap. Adopting a resolution would require calling an election by the board by August 11th of 2026 and holding that special election on November 3rd, 2026. In addition, there is another page in your packet that lays out, and I'm going to try and pull this up here. So the attempt here was to lay out our 5-year projection. Oh, hang on. And provide for you, what does that look like with the various options, okay? So the first set of numbers we see here are our current referendum renewed by the school board. This is making the assumption that the renewal by the school board would occur and we would continue as we have currently at the 623.97. You can see that there is, I pulled out the referendum, property tax is separate from all other revenue, just so you could see for our purposes kind of what that is. This isn't exact, but it is something that is an estimate. And as you can tell, the expenditures then are our 5-year projections. The change in fund balance, this all has shifted a little bit because of those enrollment projections being modified. But we are still showing that under the current status, we would need to have a $3 million reduction considered in the 27 budget in order to maintain an unassigned fund balance of 8%. So the question was, how much do we need in order to maintain that same 8% in the following year of fiscal year 28? And that looks like coming up with reductions of $9.2 million. Beyond that, there was no presumption of adjustments for expenditures. It's basically just showing you what that ending fund balance would look like, and we would be in SOD in 29. So let's look at the next option. A revoke and renew at the $15 per month increase on an average home, or $3.344 million available to us. So as you can see, this then shows we'd still need the $3 million that we're talking about for fiscal year 27 in order to maintain that 8.03%. And for fiscal year 28, we would still be looking at needing an adjustment there for $6.1 million, even though the referendum increased, okay? And beyond that, it would be now fiscal year 30 when we're technically in SOD, but very close to it in 29. Our third option shown here is a revoke and renew for the $7 million. And that is with an increase to the average home per month of 31.42. And again, you're seeing the assumption that we're going to need to do that $3 million adjustment in 27 in order to maintain the 8% fund balance unassigned. And that figure would need to be at least a 2.8 million in the second year of 28 to maintain the 8%. We would still be positive percentage in 29 if we made no adjustments in that year, but likely we would choose to do something. But it does show you then the SOD would occur in fiscal year 30, excuse me, with a negative 4.68%. Bottom line is, this is not a solution for us long-term. We've got to figure something out here. It might be something we talk about as to like, what's our first step and then what's the second step. But this does kind of share with you what that impact is. I'd be happy to show it in other forms and fashion as you desire. Just wanted a starting point to have that conversation.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple questions. The first question I have is when I look at the 5-year forecast, and I compare it to what's in the Emeritus budget book, you give a 5-year forecast in that book as well. And the expenses for '26 in the budget book are at $125 million. So there's a $6 million differential there. And then you go the next year and it gets about to be an $8 million differential, meaning you're showing higher expenses on here than what's in the merit budget book that's online.
Right.
Can you help me understand?
Sure.
Why that's different? And then I have another question after you're done answering that.
Sure. Meritorious Budget Award is based upon the adopted budget, and that's what was known at the time of the adopted budget. So when that was completed, we used Tammy's information from when that was developed and her 5-year projections that she presented to you at that time. Since then, we had the fiscal year 25 audit complete. The increase in expenditures, particularly in transportation and in special education, and those are real expenditures that are not going to go away, right? So not only did 25 increase, but we anticipate 26 will increase for those reasons as well. So what you're seeing now is updated information based upon what we now know. And there is an increase, there's no doubt.
And then I think, just like with this last adopted budget, where, the expectation was to work within revenues, work with our expenses within the revenues we receive, I think it'd be helpful to see a budget that, or a budget forecast that shows us working within our revenue expenses. Because that's our policy. Our policy says we're supposed to do that. We're doing it this year for the first time that I've been on the board, and I'm grateful for that. And so I think it's great to, it's good to show numbers of what the expenses could be, but I think it's helpful, and I think we're hearing this out of the Finance Committee as well, is that, reflecting a forecast that includes the expenses, the reductions that will be made with the consolidation of schools is important, not only in the 26 and 27 year, but there's going to be a reduction in staff. And so, I don't know how to say it, but basically, it's great to show worst case scenario. I understand that. But wouldn't it be the expectation that we would work within the revenue that we received as per our policy? Mm-hmm. And then showing what does that forecast look like every year? Because I think the picture is going to look very different. And I would say if you go back to the Emeritus Budget Book Award, it's much closer to that. It's not exact, but that's just my feedback,
So our, starting from our revised budget and moving forward, I think that the -$3 million that you see listed under the FY27 budget is that presumption of what it is that those savings would be related to the consolidation, as well as other things that need to be identified and confirmed throughout our budget to equate to that $3 million reduction, so that we would end up with expenditures that are less than the revenues that we have identified. Additionally, we, as is the case in every revenue forecast that you would see, people are more conservative on the revenue side when it comes to things like the federal funds. We are basically working off from what is anticipated to be more of a 90% of your usual initial grant award, and so that can shift things a little bit too. There's no doubt in my mind that when you revise a budget, the closer you are to being, in the mix and seeing that revenue actually being paid out, you're more confident about those figures, right? You don't know that information in May and June of the previous year, but you do know it when you get to the point of January of the current year. So the revised budget, I feel, is far more accurate with regard to what our revenues will be, but it is true that the assumptions moving forward are somewhat more conservative on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, it is a conservative approach, and we have talked about those percentages that we're putting in there, and I've done it on a line item basis so that we can try and identify those expenses that are a little bit more than normal, more than the average, and those that are less. For example, supplies, we didn't put any percentage increase on those. We're asking ourselves to live within that, right? And all of those measures have helped to keep that -2.735 that you see under fiscal 27 as low as it is. It could be higher if we weren't doing that. So it is my attempt at trying to identify what I think those numbers would be in order to keep us where our budget is, matching more closely with the revenue. And I guess the point being that sometimes there may be a need for us, keeping in mind the fact that your special education funding comes a year later. There may be some times where we do spend the previous year, and then the revenue will come in the coming year. That's just how that revenue works, and so we'll have to keep that in mind also as we work forward.
Thank you, Director Ryder. Does any other directors have any other questions or concerns? Director Smith?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a couple of questions myself. So on slide 1, when we talked about comparing ourselves to other districts, in terms of what we have authorized and us being towards the bottom of that, that chart, it doesn't say anything in there about district size, and I'm just wondering, what would be the best way to kind of ascertain how we fit into not only what other boards have authorized in terms of a levy amount, but also where we compare in size as well? Is that something that we could look at, or is that something that, what would be the best way to get that information?
I could pull together some information with regard to size, districts of similar size, if that would be useful to the board. Identifying of this list, which ones are more closely aligned with regard to size.
Yeah, I just think that it's helpful. I mean, this is helpful, no doubt. Of course it is. But also, I just think at the same time, understanding in terms of student population and what we're kind of looking at there might be additional information that could be helpful. And I also just want to understand, so with the general education formula, because we're talking about inflation and how critical that can be, not only for the general education formula, but for our own levy discussion. If I'm understanding that correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, please do. But for fiscal year, I believe it's hard to look at it on there, but I believe it's fiscal year 24 or 25. If there had been inflation, well, what the general education formula actually was 7,281, and if with inflation, that number would have been 8,665, and that's a difference of $13.15 million. So that's just inflation on a large scale. But I do think that your slides further on in this presentation really do illustrate the point that that does make a considerable difference.
Yes.
There's also, I had a question about, so when we look at the slide, if existing referendum authority had inflation in it, and we look at those numbers there, and I'll look at the blue line on that graph, just because those were the actual numbers. When we talk about the tax impact, so going 2 slides forward, and it says estimated annual tax impact, 180 or 377, is that, and again, I know that there's some different options there because there's in addition to or repeal and replace, but if we just added to that, would that tax impact be added to these numbers?
Yes, so the 180 would be, or the 377, depending upon which one would be added on top of the blue line. Now, moving forward, if inflation's tied to it.
Yes.
Then you will find that line will look a little bit more like the orange line as far as trend.
Yep, okay, thank you. And then I just have 2 final questions. One, just to understand, with the forecast, the 5-year forecast there.
Yes.
When we talk about our total revenue and our total expenses, and having a balanced budget, the line item where it says adjustment to expenditures, that is where we're accounting for that, correct?
That was my attempt for those
Yes.
2 years, yes.
Okay, so what Director Atkinson was asking for is in fact reflected on this, because we are saying we're going to have to adjust our expenses to match our revenues by this amount. Okay, thank you. And then I guess just as a final question, so we've all agreed that this is not a long-term solution. And you mentioned earlier that this may be a first step. Would you be able to comment on what a second step might be, or is that something that's unknown right now?
I think it's something we can have further conversation about at the next workshop, for example. We have some information we've also gathered with regard to what does our overall debt look like on the long-term basis, and what might then be some options for us as we move forward. We felt it was a little much to bring forward at this moment, but we do have some information being prepared for that purpose.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, I appreciate it.
Any other board members? Director France?
Yes, so first of all, thank you very much for this very thorough analysis. Obviously, there's more options available to us. But going back to is there a way that we could find out how much we would actually need in order to have a full schedule, not the cheapest schedule, available to students, as well as do what we said our priorities were, which would maintain class sizes? Instead, just look at these numbers. And I understand there's a lot more analysis that needs to get done, and there's a lot more discussion. But these numbers are maintaining status quo as much as we can with the options and the finances. Of those, where we sit in comparative districts that you had on that graph, what would it really cost for us to have a full schedule for students? What I understand most of those other school districts actually have, and what would it cost long-term as far as how much we would have to put in there in order to maintain our class size objectives or keep them at a reasonable rate going forward. Those are the two things that I would like to see in there, and not just kind of maintaining the status quo with an inflationary factor.
Director Franz, that's point well taken, and that is something that Dr. Anderson and his team have begun to scope out. So we actually do have a kind of a plan that would align to various checkpoints. We just, starting tonight, building some shared understanding of some initial dollars and cents before we go into what would it actually take to build out the comparative schedules or the comparative offerings that so often may be discussed at this dais from neighboring districts, et cetera. So that is something that we do plan to bring to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I ask a sorry.
Yeah, Director Olson.
Can I have a clarifying question? By full schedule?
Like a 7-period day
Okay, that's
versus
what I thought.
6. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Which allows the kids, our students more curriculum, more options that some of the other schools can offer, or our regular school day could offer that we can't.
Clarifying.
Yeah, Director Mason.
Yeah, just a couple. What was the 2024?
2024 levy amount?
Last levy that we went for.
Oh, 1,300 something?
No, I thought it was 1,836. It was 40-some dollars a month.
I'm sorry, I
I mean,
don't
you
have that off
can,
the
you
top of
can
my head.
We
please
can get that
verify that for
information
you,
to
but
you.
that's what I recall,
And that
yeah.
was based upon home value and a few
A different,
other factors.
yeah, it was
right?
a different, the home values were lower.
I think it would be helpful to compare that to the two, or just, I was just curious when I thought about that. Yeah, and then on the 5-year projection too, I think, I guess kind of more the expenses that you're showing on this, I think we spoke about this, and from what I understand, like after 2026, 27 going forward in the expenditures, you are not yet reflecting the building closure or any other assumptions of reductions. Right now, it's just a carry forward plus some percent, correct? So we're not like adjusting for ADM or, the building closure is not in there yet, et cetera, right, in that expenditure.
I would say it's included in the 3 million that is shown under fiscal year '27.
That's, okay, so that's basically a cut that we.
And I think that the numbers we're talking about for the consolidation are less than the 3 mil, but yep.
Okay, and then I guess, the only other comment too is just, and going back to, I believe it was the June meeting, that levy feedback from our community. I think that's really important for us to recall what that feedback was.
Director Mason, I did pull that, and that was an additional $45 a month, which totaled $1,803 per student, which at that time put us kind of in a little bit below midpoint of some of the comparable districts. But that was the total.
Director Johnson?
Just one thing, Director Ryder, when you, and it kind of adds on a little bit to everyone, I know you're going to compare to other districts when looking, if we could get as close to our own, i.e. the residential side versus like a heavy commercial. That would be super helpful.
Hard to do.
I
I mean,
understand,
it's
but
really
I know
hard
that
to do.
When we're preparing any items to go out, that will be a main point
It's reality.
that we need to,
I can
let
appreciate
everybody
that, yep.
know. It would be greatly appreciated. And thank you again, this is phenomenal work as usual, so
Okay.
greatly appreciated.
I just have one last question. When I understand, thank you for putting the unit, the ADM projections for students. When you're looking at the expenditures, are you also making adjustments for staff based on the reduction of ADM? Because we're losing about 200 students from where we were in 26, 27. So are you also making the cuts to the staff that would be reflective of, because when I went back and looked at your 5-year forecast in October, and that expenditure number is the same. And I know that we're going to be there will be some staff reductions due to the building consolidations. So I wanted to just ask that question.
Right, so the expenditures line that you see is a complete roll forward, okay? So for instance, if we were to reduce 3 million in fiscal year '27, that's going to reduce your expenditures. And then when you apply the same percentage increases to those, it's going to be less than the 136 you're seeing in the next year, right? So that would be cumulative, right? So you have a point there. The 9.2 million that you see listed though under fiscal '28 is indicative of what would be needed in order to bring us to the point that we would anticipate being at if we wanted an 8% fund balance unassigned, right? And so part of that 9.2 would absolutely have to be staffing adjustments. So expenditures line is entirely roll forward. And the adjustments to expenditures is an anticipated need for us to be able to maintain. Once you get past 28, that number becomes so large. We are at a point where we are already to the bone. And so it's very difficult to come up with, where am I going to find $9.2 million? And that's just our reality too.
Any final thoughts? I want to thank you, Director Ryder. This is a lot of information, we have important decisions to make going forward regarding this, so I appreciate all the questions and the start of this, conversation. We'll be processing together and moving forward together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the 2026 final legislative platform. I will entertain a motion I will entertain a motion for that, to approve that. Director Johnson. Was that you, Director Mason? Thank you. I'll open it up for discussion. Hearing no discussion?
No, there's definitely going to be discussion. Sorry, I thought Dr. Thomas was going to lead. So this obviously
sorry.
looks very different than where we were at the last time. And so based on the feedback of Director Johnson and I, we were up at the delegate assembly. We provided some additional feedback to Dr. Thomas on things that had passed at the delegate assembly. The one thing on this platform that never passed at the delegate assembly, and I was firmly against and stood up against this, was, and I wanted to actually provide more information to our board about the PSEO reform. And so there was a lot of talk about PSEO reform, and there's actually for our board, so that you know, there is actually a work group that was formed. It's called Minnesota P20 Education Partnership, and it's a work group that is working on reforming PSEO. So as a parent who has had students who have gone through the PSEO program, I've seen the benefits, I've also seen the challenges, and so I fully support this work group, and I feel like, you know, there are some changes that need to be made to the PSEO program, but the one thing that I caution, and the reason that this one bullet point did not pass at delegate assembly, and the bullet point that it is number 2. It says, prevent duplicate state payments when equivalent concurrent enrollment courses are offered in high schools. The reason that this did not pass is because the whole point of reforming the PSEO program was not to take away educational opportunities away from students, but to do things like change the reimbursement rates or put more guardrails in place so that parents have access or schools have access to whether or not that student is succeeding at a PSEO level. Also, there's some other guidelines that are listed here that would basically change the guardrails of the PSEO program, but the thing that I just really want to caution on this second bullet point is that the reason that this specific bullet point did not pass is because it takes away student opportunities. And I know the argument is, well, it has to be offered as a college level class at the high school. And if it's offered as a college level high school course at the high school, then they wouldn't be able to take it as a PSEO course, because I understand that from a school standpoint, you're losing the ADM for that. But I'm going to give a perfect example, and I know a student who's taking PSEO chemistry up at Normandale currently. In order for them to get a college credit for chemistry, they'd have to take AP chemistry. In AP chemistry, there's a path of what they have to take in order to get the AP chemistry. So if you just take a student who maybe is not like super into science or whatever, and they want to go to Normandale and they want to get that chemistry credit, we know that that chemistry course at Normandale is probably not as hard as that AP chemistry course. And so you're basically taking away from an opportunity away from a student because they would have to, at the high school, they'd have to go through the honors path to get to that AP chemistry course. That's just one example. There was a myriad of other examples that were talked about at the delegate assembly. So I just wanted to point that out because I think the whole point of reforming it, there's a lot of work to be done, but nobody felt that we should be taking away opportunities away from students.
Sure. Thank you, Director Atkinson. And yeah, and that was I was going to, so sorry, but I was trying to get who's going to go first.
That's okay.
That was my fault. I should have called on him, and please, going forward, raise your hand, and I'll call on directors. That'll help us.
No worries. And so, so after the delegate assembly, I did have a conversation with Director Atkinson and Johnson, and then we pulled together a lot of bullets based upon what passed and didn't pass at the assembly. And so we carried over some bullets. That was probably one that was missed in terms of, because there was like several line items within these big sections. And so I apologize that one might not have had the support of MSBA, so we can certainly revise that on this. I think everything else we captured accordingly.
Yeah.
So that would be the one bullet under PSEO that just given where MSBA stood, we would want to be in alignment with that, and so we would retract that bullet. To Director Atkinson's point about this work group, Chad and I at the high school were part of some of the field interviews that they were doing. So our district was represented in that, along with several others, just initially as they're starting to frame that, and definitely a lot of work. I absolutely agree. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with regards to PSEO in the state of Minnesota. So if it's the will of the board, we would ask that you take action on this, minus the second bullet that did not pass through the MSBA assembly.
Good. Any other comments or discussion, questions? Director France.
Well, first of all, thank you for consolidating this. I know that a couple years in a row, we started off with a lot of different options, and we're not really focusing. So I do appreciate the succinctness of the way this is. I do ask, and I have a lot of experience with the PSEO also, is that we do focus on the opportunities available by school district. I understand we haven't always agreed with the MSBA. I do think this is a very complicated issue. It's going to be different by student, by family, et cetera. And of course, the goal is to maximize the opportunities without allowing the PSEO process to actually take away from what is supposed to be the rigor involved in the PSEO, not as a duplicate for high school classes, or as a replacement for online. But every class is going to be different. And I just, we need reform, but what I'd like to have in here is the opportunity for school districts to also have a little bit more say, because each student is going to be different. And when we try to normalize something across the state, it just seems disingenuous to each student's personal experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say just some of my initial conversations with our superintendent's group and some of the initial pilot conversations with the work group that's starting up, I do believe there's going to be a statewide model of PSEO that will be the governing model. There will be some autonomy within districts, and that's mainly going to be on helping your local community understand if you are in a position where you can offer college and schools or CIS, I think that's going to be the breadth of autonomy. I think billing is going to be another area that will have some local control, but I also believe there may be some parameters around what would be eligible for state reimbursement. That's going to be something separate with higher education reform. So I think a lot of what both of you are saying is actually the work of this work group. And so I'm confident about this work group to be able to flush out much more than what we have here and get to the nuance I think that you're speaking of, as well as stand alone as we would need to at the local level, particularly, like I said, on a couple of those measures as I mentioned earlier. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Director Olstad?
Yes, thank you for this. There's a couple of bullet points that kind of don't match style, so I was just wondering if we wanted to take those out and use as talking points versus having them on the platform. I am talking about in the last three sections, the last bullets when we're talking about dollar amounts.
Yeah.
And they're great facts to have. I just, from a matching the design standpoint, we use as talking points instead. And I just want to make sure that these numbers have been vetted.
They have been, so thank you for your feedback on that, Director Olstad. And this actually does mirror what we did last year, where we had bullets plus projected costs to our district. One of the things, and Director Johnson mentioned this when he was down for MSBA Day, not to steal your thunder, but we have a very succinct platform compared to some other neighboring districts that have multiple pages and brochures and all of that. The one thing that he observed is that our one-sided approach actually made it into the stack that the elected official kept. And with that comes now the talking points of financial realities. You all can have that still with, conversation points, but I would encourage the board to consider staying consistent with what we did last year, which was pretty impactful, and that was to have both talking points and what are the key dollar amounts that are really most impactful, because they're wanting to know dollars and cents when it comes to our piece. And so we can say it that day, maybe they're taking notes, but to Director Francis' point, if we want to have our autonomous voice land, I definitely want to make sure that we talk about some big bucket impacts that hit us. So that's why we kept it the same.
Totally fair.
And they are updated, I'm sorry. And you asked if they were revised, these are revised.
Or vetted.
Vetted.
Like
They're
the money.
carryovers, but we've adjusted based upon new projections. Yep.
Thank you so much, and I think that's fair. I appreciate it.
Director Johnson?
Oh, I was just gonna say the same thing. Watched with Chair Bullion there, them take a stack of the other persons that were in the same room with us and put it on the floor, and ours that they were taking notes on and put it directly into their notebook. So, the difference between the two makes a, so.
Anyone else? So, with the motion on the table to accept the legislative platform, do I need to take it back, or can I modify the motion? Modify the motion? Okay, so I'm gonna modify the motion to approve this less the second bullet point under reforming post-secondary enrollment options. Do I have, so made, thank you, Director Johnson. And do I have a second? Director Smith, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. All right, next up is policy. We have no policies at this time. And then the next item is administrative reports. Administrators,
Yes, thank you.
thank you.
My report, Superintendent Thomas beat me to the punch, but it's going back to the consent agenda to recognize Principal Katie Sherman as well. So just wanted to pass on, since joining our district in 2020 from Kenyon-Wanamingo Schools, Katie has been a valued member of our leadership team, and with 34 years of experience in public education, she has brought strong instructional leadership and a deep commitment to building meaningful relationships. Her dedication to collaboration with teachers, families, and students, and her focus on improving learning for all children has made a lasting impact on Five Hawks and our district as a whole. I did ask her colleagues to share some words that summarize Principal Sherman, and these are some themes that came up. A consistent, encouraging, caring colleague. She's thoughtful, advocate, insightful, and persistent, resilient, and a lifelong learner, and she's committed and articulate school leader. Thoughtfulness, call to action, and sense of humor. An amazing colleague, passionate about learning, dedicated to staff and students, positive, forward thinking, and always puts the needs of student first. Student-centered leader who builds strong relationships with students, their families, and staff. And I find it truly amazing after 34 years of public school service to hear those kinds of words from your colleagues is a sign of Principal Sherman's dedicated commitment to all the family, staff, and districts she has served over her career. And I'd like to extend my personal gratitude to Principal Sherman for her years of service.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Those are wonderful words that match her, that well-deserved. Thank you, Katie. Any other administrative reports? None? All right, we'll move on to board reports. Student report?
First, I just want to touch up on the Red Tail teachers that were here earlier. I was a Red Tail kid back in the day, and so I appreciate them for all the work they're doing for those kids, from just teaching us basic algebra to all the high school level math we do. Like, I'm in Calc 3 now, and so without them, I couldn't have gotten to those points. And so shout out to them. I also want to go back to what the teachers were saying about class sizes. You know, definitely as a student, we're seeing it as well. You know, if I think back to like my kindergarten class, we had like 18 to 19 students, and now you're saying classes are pushing 30 students. You know, when they're talking about the science labs, 39 students, you know, they're definitely not exaggerating. We see it every day at the high school, and so, you know, just definitely listen to those teachers, and, you know, what they're saying about the class sizes stuff is definitely true. On another note, I was able to get some student feedback about some pressing issues, I would say. Obviously, you guys know there was a situation that happened a few days ago with federal officers and all that. And so I feel like as my job as the student representative, you know, regardless of whether or not I agree with these students, you know, I need to, you know, project their voice out and make sure that they're heard, because, you know, we're all one school district, we're all one team. Everyone's voice deserves to be heard, and so I'm going to read this off real quick. Today I'm here to share a consistent concern I hear from my peers: the need for our schools to be a true sanctuary for learning. Currently, many students are feeling a frightened sense of anxiety, whether that stems from the fear of school violence or the uncertainty caused by the presence of federal law enforcement in the neighborhoods. Regardless of one's personal politics, we can all agree that a student who is preoccupied with their physical safety or the safety of their family cannot focus on their studies. My goal is to ensure that our district remains a place where every student feels secure from the moment they step into school and until they return home, so that their only job while in the halls is to be a student. And so that's what I have to say regarding that issue. On another note, you know, end of the quarter is coming up for high school students. We're trying to overcome that post-holiday slump, I would say. And so another highlight, our MinCaps program, they had some alumni come back to talk about, you know, their insight on college and future professions. And so that was definitely good for them to hear from older mentors and all that. For our seniors, you know, trying to figure out FAFSA and finishing up college applications and getting some results back. I know I've been trying to work with that stuff as well, and so that's what's going on with some of our upperclassmen. And then juniors are starting to prep for ACT, all the standardized testing coming up, and so that's always big as well. For sports, the basketball teams are doing really well. Boys basketball beat Lakeville South by 30, and then they beat Burnsville by 40, so that's huge. And then girls basketball, they played Burnsville on Mental Health Awareness Night, and they beat them by 56 points, so that's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
Yeah. And then our girls hockey, they played on Saturday, won 9-0 against Eastview, and boys hockey has a big game against Lakeville South tomorrow as well. And then the wrestling team, they had a meet last Thursday, beating both Lakeville South and Eastview. And, you know, I would say they dominated the competition very well. As for student council, we had the opportunity to go caroling over break. We had a lot of fun singing out in the cold, and we were able to raise over $500 as well. And so that was huge. We're also very excited to announce some of our winter events coming up. We are partnering with our Unified Club to do a fun dance for students with special needs. We're also planning our annual dodgeball tournament, our winter carnival, and then a new school-wide girls basketball event, and so we're excited for that. And then finally, we're planning another new event called Lakers on Ice, which will be held at Lakefront. There's going to be hot chocolate, figure skating, and a bunch of fun activities for students to do. And so very optimistic about what we have coming up this winter, and I'm excited to share more with you guys about that. So thank you.
Thank you for that board report. I have a question for you. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the $500 that you raised for when you were caroling, what does that go toward?
We're still deciding either Make-A-Wish or Salvation Army. And
Very
so
good. So is this your first year caroling?
I remember 2 years ago we did it.
Okay.
And I remember freshman year we did it too. And so I think, yeah, we just try and do it when we
Very
remember, I
good.
guess.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that report. Other board reports. We can start with you, Dr. Atkinson.
Yeah, I have a brief report. Thank you. I just, on December 11th, I attended the Early Childhood Committee. It's been a pleasure serving on that committee, especially meeting some of the parents that are involved in that committee. And they're just doing a lot of planning for the year for fundraising. They'll do their book swap that like they've done in the past, and then some of their fundraising ideas are they do an art sale, and then they'll have some upcoming events with Edelweiss Bakery. And then, of course, they're starting to plan for their teacher appreciation May 4th through the 8th. So Vicki Spieler does a phenomenal job of leading that committee, and I think Dustin will be, you're on the committee, so it's a wonderful committee to attend. They'll be, you'll enjoy it. It's been a pleasure to, especially, like I said, to getting to know the parents there, so. Thank you.
Dr. Johnson.
Real quick, you all received the extensive notes from PAA and LABC, so I won't go over everything. So just wanted to give a shout out to, parents, coaches, janitors, everyone else that helped out with the abundance of tournaments and everything that still went on over the break and continue to go on, as our student rep said. And yeah, so thanks for all of that.
Yes, we had a finance committee on the 6th, I believe it was. So went through a lot of what we went through tonight with the 25-26 budget adjustments, as well as the forecast for the following year. Talked, about and just a great meeting. That was fantastic. Funding for that program and
If it gets cold, our ice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So would love the community support for that. And then events, so they talked about the kindness dance. High school is on February 4th.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Olstad.
I'm actually really enjoying the notes from everybody's committee meetings, so I like that we're doing that now. That's really helpful. We do not have a teaching and learning meeting in January, so we'll be planning soon for February. A couple of notes on Southwest Metro. Really excited to continue serving on that. So thank you very much. I love serving there. Superintendent Horton is actually presenting at our MSBA conference later this week. So that's Thursday in an afternoon session, so excited for that. And speaking of Superintendent Horton, he was named Soup of the Year by the District Administration National Awards of Distinction across 6 categories. So that's just a nice feather in his cap. He's doing really good work over there. And our next meeting is on the 20th.
Very good. Dr. France?
Yes. So I attended Scale, and it was the first meeting of the new year. The SMSC hosted and gave an extensive update on their number of community engagements, their investments, new business ventures, engagement with U of M for investing in tech environment and their new, actually existing companies that they already own, as well as their new investments. and capping the presentation off with the addition of a male bison to help grow the herd that we can all see. The majority of the meeting was an update on the county-controlled substance abuse and everything from drug arrests to what they're seeing in their statistics and findings. But most importantly, what it highlighted was the incredible work of our county health professionals and our law enforcement, that the actual impact of those programs are really showing a benefit. Of course, they didn't have 2025 numbers, but through 2024, those numbers had decreased quite a bit. They're also seeing a huge shift in drug use and they've been seeing this for a while. Of course, meth is growing quite a bit. And then there were some comments on different issues occurring because of marijuana and the higher percentage of THC in them and the impact and the number of people that are actually in treatment for that right now as well. So it was a very, very good presentation that should be up on the SCALE website pretty soon, so I hope everyone takes a look at it. On the other side, the MinCaps business program for their business sponsorship, they will be doing their presentations on the 20th. I had an opportunity to spend several hours this morning with the MinCaps business team, and I will be back there tomorrow. They're doing incredible work. The program is just outstanding, and we should be really, really proud of it. And then finally, I did listen to the story time. Which, the one thing I missed is the dog. You usually have the dog. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun, actually. And your ability to half sing the book was also interesting.
I was a drummer, not a singer.
Yeah, but you did a good job. It was enlightening
now?
and entertaining. And hopefully a lot of people were able to log into that. So that's it.
Thank you. Director Smith.
Clearly, I don't have any committees, but now I do, so that's exciting.
Yes, you do.
But I do feel just compelled to comment on the incredible work from the folks from Laker Pride at Red Tail Ridge and Principal Yetzer, Jen Maloney, and the 4 teachers that were here presenting on those results. And I think it's a real case study on what can happen and the results that can be achieved when people work together. And I think it's a valuable lesson for us to carry into this new year. And I really think that it's a testament to Principal Yetzer to inviting those questions and saying, yes, help us dig into this information more. They mentioned that it's a testament to the teachers being early adopters and saying, yes, we want to learn more. We want to do better with this curriculum. And I just, I think it's a very well-done example and a testament to what we can achieve in our schools if we work together.
Thank you. Next up is future events. We have a bunch of things listed. Martin Luther King Day is January 19th, no school, E through 12. End of the second quarter and first semester is January 22nd. We can all read our own agendas, right? I won't go through them all. So what I will do is take a motion to adjourn.
So made.
By Director Smith, and a second.
Second.
And that, I have to ask, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes 7-0. We are adjourned, and we will be, we are going to be transitioning into a closed session, and Martha shared with me that I need to read this in public. The meeting will now be closed in accordance with the open meeting law for the purpose of discussing negotiations strategy. And we will take a 5-minute break and come back for our closed session.